step by step that we go through for the instructor content? Sure, no problem. Yeah, we call it sometimes courseware. We used to call it the participant guide. Now I think they are calling it just the workbook itself. Perfect. Looks like everybody got connected. Good job. I'm going to hang this up so I don't hear myself in echo. There we go. All right. So we'll say throughout this class, if you have any questions that pop into your head that you want to ask, please don't hesitate to let me know. There's no official question and answer section I have to my classes here necessarily. If there's something you think about, just let me know and we'll try to address it. There's about accessing your live classes. You all got there already. This is just in case people had trouble. But here's our document. This is the courseware or the workbook. Make that a little bit bigger. So Administration Essentials, basic reports. In here, what we have are a table of contents initially, some talking points, and then we get into the actual activities where we work in the environment. I'll be doing some demos as we go through as well to show it to you first so you have a better understanding of what our goal is before you go through the step-by-step. Here's our table of contents. We'll talk about our course objectives overall. Pretty straightforward. Basics of reporting, just a few other things in addition to that. We'll have a case study that a lot of you are familiar with already, a fictitious company we work with who has personas or roles, and we'll see who we're working with for today's class. And the anatomy, the components we deal with when we build a report in the environment. There's actually 3 separate sections we go into sometimes. We then focus on the report data object. That is our starting point. See what that looks like overall and how we access that. And finally, at the very end of the process, we talk about the profiles that dictate who's allowed to get to that report. That's a report data access profile. That's usually the very last piece you do. You address that to make sure whoever made the request now has access to the report. And to learn about all this, I'm going to go through the basics here. Creating initially the source content, then an unpublished report. That's how all reports start. Applying some basic formatting. Nothing fancy for this class, but just some basics to make it look nicer. We'll see what the process looks like to publish the reports. Other words for publishing, register, deploy the report. People call that different things sometimes, but in our application, we do call it publish. And then adding the report to the report data access profile, like we said, making sure people have access to it at the end. And then the person runs it. Whoever made the request, they're going to log in as themselves, try to run the report, and hopefully see what they expected. That's always our goal, right? Sometimes they don't get exactly what they want, so we have to make updates. So updating a basic report after you have published it, made it available, and now the person says, hey, I want you to make a change to that report somehow. Talk about some basics here, removing columns. Adding a filter of some sort that will limit the records on the report based upon a condition. And then possibly adding a new column that we did not know about initially. Maybe they didn't give us that information. So that's our first report we're going to work on. Then we're going to really duplicate those steps on a slightly different type of report, a basic organization report. All that means is instead of looking directly at employee-specific information, not looking at the employee name and ID, let's say, but looking at the department perspective, something higher up in the business structure, essentially. That's what an organization report is. But the process for building the report is almost identical. You identify the source content, what you want for the information, the list of columns you want to select, create the unpublished report, publish it, make it available, and then somebody reviews it. And sometimes they still have further changes. So we're going to see that process because it happens very often that people want you to make some changes afterwards. Let's see one little thing here. Okay, there we go. Now, some of you may be noticing what's happening here, that I might be putting everyone on mute. Please don't be offended by that. It doesn't mean you can't speak during the class. If you want to ask a question verbally, you certainly can. The reason I do that is, like I said before, sometimes you don't realize you are not on mute. And then you start having a personal conversation, and it carries through the class environment here. But this is our list of objectives, what we're trying to get through overall. The process for creating a report and making updates as we need to. The report data object, which is a critical component that we start with in the very beginning. Updating, adding new columns, sorting, formatting data, realigning columns, moving the columns around. And we start with a table-based report here because that is the most popular type. Most of the reports you find within this system inside Workforce Dimensions already use a table. It's a type of visualization used to display the content a certain way. Looks like Excel, columns and rows of information. I also mentioned that there's some pre-learning on Knowledge Map talking about creating and publishing reports. What that's meant for is called pre-learning, and what that's for is to look through that before you attend these classes, just as a reminder. Now, you may not have gotten to that, that's okay. Sometimes people did not have time, and there's a lot of classes to go through. Be aware that even if you did not have time to review that before this class, it's really great for refresher training as well. So let's say you take this class, you don't have time to work with the reporting for 3 or 4 weeks, you might want to review that content in Knowledge Map just as a reminder of the components we had and how the reporting process works. And here's our case study. Case study MVP Athletics, sportswear, sneakers, all those fun things to make us fit. That's great what they do. What we care about more than that, though, is who are the people who want information out of Workforce Dimensions regarding the content, regarding their employees they oversee, overtime, absences, exceptions, whatever that might be. So you have two people down here. We have Sean and we have Michael. Now, Michael is a manager. He oversees staff. And he's definitely looking to figure out what's going on with the people he oversees, what's going on with them, are they having overtime, what I need to manage better, what's happening at a higher perspective from my company overall with my staff and my people I oversee. Problem is, Michael doesn't have the permissions in our environment to get into the setup and create a new report. He can't do that. So he's really relying on Sean. This guy up here, Sean Ivan. Sean has the rights to go into the setup within the environment. He might be a database administrator, IT, IS, something like that. He works with data, may not oversee staff, but he has the permissions to get into the environment and create the report and make it available to Michael. So we're going to be logging in mostly as Sean for the purpose of the class most of the time, but then checking the report as Michael. Michael makes the request. Sean does all the work. So let me ask all of you, considering what your role is at your company, are you relating to one of these two people here? Are you kind of more the Sean person that you're expecting to get report requests coming to you from other people in your company? Are you more of a manager who maybe is just going to build reports yourself? Or you might be somebody totally different and you just want to get a better idea of how the reporting works in the system. At least I'm more on the Sean side, okay? Anybody else? Do you fall into one of those two categories, more of a manager side? Or more on the setup and configuration and tech side? Usually more Michael of a manager, okay? And as a manager, you might still have the permissions, though, that Sean does. So sometimes you kind of bridge that combination somehow. Other people with Sean as well? All right. Some people say I'm an HR or payroll, but I need data out of the system as well. Maybe I don't oversee staff, but I have to know what's going on in the system. So you might still be a requester, just like Michael. All right. See what we have here. Our anatomy. I can't point to this, unfortunately. My little mouse doesn't want to work here in the PDF. But in the lower right-hand corner of this little box we have, it says letter blue, report to data objects. Now let me ask another question. How many of you have done reporting before? Reporting or generating SQL queries against the database for the purpose of extracting database content. Generating queries. Jen, you have? Okay. It's not required, just wondering. Lisa, you have as well? A few other people? Okay. Doesn't have to be for the Kronos systems at all. Could be an entirely different application sometimes. Karen, not your thing? You haven't done it yet? That's okay. So the reason I bring this up is because we call this feature a report data object in the system. What this is, essentially, we call it different things in different applications. It's the selection of content for the report. So when Michael comes to Sean and he says, hey, I need this report, this is the information I want on the report. That's what we're talking about with the report data object. You can call it the selection of columns. The columns could be the employee's last name, what their employee ID is, what their hire date is, what their job is, what their hours were for actual hours versus overtime hours, any of that information, any of the data you typically track within the system in the first place. is accessible and made available when we generate the report data object. So report data object, also referred to as record selection. A selection of fields in a SQL query before you aggregate or summarize that content or group by. So only just a selection of the content, essentially. Everything starts there. We say there's both custom and standard. There are standard report data objects out there already. You cannot revise those or use them, but you can copy them. You can copy one of the initial report data objects and then make it your own somehow. We're going to be creating custom report data objects where we make our own decisions about exactly what we want. That's our selection. I will tell you that the report data object is created completely separate from the report build. It's an entirely different location in the application. A little different than other applications. A lot of times it's all combined in one. If I want another field, another column of information, I just go and get it while I'm in the report build process. Not so in this system. The data object is created separately, and then the report is created later and references the report data object. Now that could be good and bad. It kind of depends. The good thing is that you could create one single report data object that provides the source content for multiple custom reports you want to generate. That's great. Create one, reference it multiple times in different reports. The negative of it sometimes is when somebody says, oh, I forgot to tell you I want another column on that report. Then you have to go all the way back to the report data object and add that column to the report data object first before you can make it available in the report. So it's kind of good and bad. But it's kind of different in this system, how it's separate. It is separate from the report build. But that's initially where we start. We start with the report data object. We don't get anywhere in the report build if we don't have this report data object created first. A lot of times, and you might hear me say this, I might say fields sometimes, like database fields. That's my habit from my other classes. We don't officially call them fields in Workforce Dimensions. We call every bit of data a column of information. So the official word is column. I may accidentally say field. I mean the same thing. So the report data object is our starting point. And then we start with the unpublished reports. It's that arrow that goes down there and to the left. Unpublished. All of the reports begin as an unpublished report. They don't have any definition yet. There's no design built in, no decisions made. And you can stay in that mode for a while. You might be in a situation where you cannot afford to spend your entire day working on a custom report. Maybe you have to kind of divide that between days. That's okay. Maybe create the report data object one day, start the unpublished report the next day. You can keep it in the unpublished mode for a while and keep going back there, continuing to make modifications to it. That's fine. Once you're done with it, though, once you're done with the report, you publish it. Think you have it all ready to go, all the content is there, it looks good. You publish it, and when you publish, all you're really doing is giving a heads up to Workforce Dimensions saying, hey, there's a new report out there. Here's the name of it. Here's what I want you to call it when it's displayed to the end user. You can choose to show another label and a description, and what category it's going to show up in, and a little bit about parameters. Not a lot of settings here to publish. Once we publish, yes, Workforce Dimensions knows about it, but still no managers in your environment have access to the report. No one can get to it to run it until you do this last part, upper left-hand corner, Report Data Access Profile. That's when you figure out if it's Michael Martin making the request. Okay, what data access profile does Michael belong to for the reporting? I want to assign the report to that report data access profile. Once it's added to that profile, then Michael can get to it. So you don't have to worry that right when you publish, people can see it right away and run it. Nope, not until you do that last step. That's our anatomy overall, the components that we have as we walk through the process. A little bit more about report concepts here, just two of these. We talk a little bit more about the report data object. So I'm going to be focusing on this in the very beginning because we're back here quite often. I want to explain what this is. Move this up here. Oops, and about there. So we say the report data object is a collection of, like we said, columns of information, the bits of data you want to return for the report. So I want to see the last name and maybe their first name and their hire date, who they report to, things like that. We say we reference this content through the Workforce Dimensions Data Dictionary. So unlike with SQL, for some of you who have SQL experience where you can generate a SQL query against the database directly, we do not have that option with Workforce Dimensions. Our only means, of selecting the data from the data content is through the data dictionary. Where the great thing is it's predefined and it's kind of offered up. You don't have to dig through tables. You don't have to go find everything all over the place. It's one big list and it's categorized to kind of help you break down the content and find the information you're looking for. And it's searchable. So it's a lot better sometimes than having to look for data. So we're going to see the data dictionary, how that's referenced in our system. And here what they're showing you for the screenshot is the definition of a report data object. Or right here, there's something about a report data object key. Can't really show it right there, but that is the name of it. No one sees that. You don't have to worry that the manager, Michael, later on will see that report data object key, the name of it. No one's going to see that. It's just you, as the developer, you will have to reference that when you go to build the report itself to identify its source content. We're not allowed to put spaces in there. Underscores are okay, but no spaces. Description down below, worthwhile. Put something in there so you can search on that as well if you don't remember what the name was. And down here we say column relationship rules. Between the two files. I'm sorry, excuse me one second, I'm going to start coughing. I'm going to put myself on mute. Rosalinda, I can try. I will. What it throws me off with that is that I can't tell if I'm still connected to the Adobe session, but I will. I'll try to remove it. Somebody give me a heads up if all of a sudden I'm gone. Try to let me know. So I'll try to move it out of the way. Okay, thanks. Yeah, sorry about that. I know I could see part of it on my side as well. So what I was talking about right here, column relationship rules and inner joins, left outer joins, and such. That's a topic we usually have to worry about when you use other reporting tools because you have to establish a relationship. Okay, good. Between the source files somehow. And it's kind of tricky. You have to find fields in common. You have to decide what that relationship is. What's great about the data dictionary, our means of accessing data from workforce mentions, they've already configured the relationships for us. We don't have to do it. Nobody has to do it. So this guy right here, this is column relationship rules, should remain enabled. There's a check mark there by default. Leave the check mark in there. Best way to do it. In fact, we're not even opening this up at all to allow people to somehow create their own links just yet. We're not there yet. We're kind of deciding against it, thinking the way we have it set up is probably one of the best ways. So you don't have to worry about that. But it is going to affect other content when you go to select your columns. Down here at the bottom, we show columns. These are the ones already selected. So I'm seeing only the selected columns. This is not by any means the full list of columns available from the data dictionary. I access that with this add button on the right. That add button pops up the data dictionary and lets me select the content I want for the report. So I'll demo that. I'm going to show it to you and also show you a couple gotchas that might throw you off sometimes so you're aware of how to work that best. That's our starting point, the report data object, identifying the columns for the report. Mentioned down here, there's two types, standard and custom. Standard, you can make copies of most of them. There's a couple that are more system related you would not bother with, but most of them you can copy. And we can create our own custom. We're going to do custom for our purposes, make all of our own decisions. And we say down here about the relationship rules, what that is. Relationships are built in already so that you can quickly develop a report. And so you do not necessarily need to have advanced knowledge of SQL and the table relationships. You don't have to know that anymore, which makes the entire reporting content here in Workforce Dimensions a lot more accessible to people who maybe don't have that technical knowledge, which is great. It used to be you have to kind of be on the techie side to really get the most out of the reporting. Not so much. Not so much in this system. Here we jump all the way to the end. So we're kind of bypassing the whole middle portion where you build a report. We talk about when you assign the report to the report data access profile. You determine who's going to have access to it. And all that is down here, we've gone into the manager profile. See the name up here, manager profile. And whatever you select down here has a check mark. You can see currently assigned. These are all the reports that people in that profile are allowed to access. That's like a 3-step process, very easy. That's our last step to make sure the report is available to the right people in our system. That's our introductory content right there. And then we start talking about the creation of the basic employee reports. What does this step-by-step look like overall? Make that a little bit smaller. There we go. Creating a basic employee reports. Here's our situation. Michael Martin is our manager. He wants to look at employee accrual balances. He's trying to manage time off requests. So he's asking Sean to create a new report for him. Now a little bit further down here, he's showing that dark blue section, kind of the process overall. Design and create the report date object. Then you start with the unpublished report, apply any formatting you might want, publish the report, and assign it to the report data access profile to get to the right users. Now I will tell you before I even start with that report date object, I've been doing reporting for quite a while. And this has gotten me a couple times. It's caused me trouble. There's something else I would do before I even start developing the report date object. What do you think that might be? Anybody know? What's that first step before you even start development of any portion of this? Something else that if we don't do it, and I just popped up the box, that's okay, I'm just going to leave it there for a second. If we don't do this, we often have to go back and fix the report, and fix the report. Go round and round, rotating door of requirements. Depends on how many reports you built. A lot of times before you start development, you want to have a super duper clear understanding of exactly what that person is requesting. Because very often it's not you who wants the report. It's great if it is, you can just make your mind up as you go through. When somebody else is requesting a report from you, like a manager, you want to sit down with that person and not just have a vague description of what they want. You don't just want, I want the accrual balances so I can manage overtime requests. Or time off requests, I should say. That's not enough information, right? I have to know exactly what columns of information you want in that report, in what order. Do you want me to exclude any records? Do you want me to format things a certain way, like the dates should be formatted a certain way? All those items that could later change or that they want to maybe modify later on, you want to try to get some, let me say, I've lost the word I want. You want to agree. I want that. Some agreement with that to say, yes, this is what I'm going to build for you. That's what you want. It's good to get on paper. Let me just say that if you're going to start building reports for other people in your environment, in your company, get it down on paper somehow. Could be in an email. Email's good enough, at least it's electronic paper. But that it's written down that these are the requirements. Because I can't tell you how many times it comes back here that you build a report, you provide access to it, the person comes back and says, that's almost great. That's great, almost. They want a change made. And maybe that change was not something they had mentioned in the very beginning, but they kind of say, well, you might have misheard me, you misunderstood me, I'm sure I told you that. This is just my podium that I go off on a tangent here because I have done report development for years, before Kronos as well. You'd be surprised how often, if it's not written down and agreed upon first, this can become a rotating door of requirements that report takes you 3 months to finish because they keep changing it and changing it and changing it. What you want to do is get the requirements up front. And it's not just for your benefit, it's for the person making the request as well. Because what you want to be able to do is create the correct report for them the very first time. That's good for them, that's good for you. It doesn't take delay to get it to be the correct information. Right away, they're getting exactly what they requested, and you have no doubt about what you're trying to build. So that's just my tangent going off to the side there, but do consider that. If you're building reports for other people, try to make sure you're clear on what they want, So let's say that Sean and Michael had an in-depth conversation here, and they wrote it down on a piece of paper. And now Sean knows exactly what Michael wants. These columns of information: the employee's name and ID, their job, the accrual code itself, the balance of those accruals, and the balance date. The balance dates are our month-end balances, essentially. So Sean's goal is to create a new report date object that identifies those columns so we have them available to the report. So here's my plan. I'm going to go through part of this and demonstrate just this page right here. This is page 7. So if you're looking at page 7 in your courseware, I just want you to watch my screen, please, because there's a couple items in here that will throw you off, and I want to explain what those are so you know how to work with them. But if you want to have page 7 in front of you, that might be a good idea. So I'm going to come back here into my system. This is my tenant right here, and I'm going to log in as, if I just move a little bit here so I can actually type, Sean Ivan. Now you're not logging in yet at all. You are watching my screen, aren't you? Yes, you are. I'm going to give you time to do this afterwards. When Sean logs in, he doesn't have much of a home page because he's always in the setup of the environment. And how we get there is from the main menu icon, choosing administration, and application setup. So everything I'm doing here is listed on that page 7, except for a couple things I do want to point out. Want to get all the way in here, all the blue boxes, identify the different types of content we can work with. What we're going for is down here in the lower left-hand corner, Common Setup. In the Common Setup is where we have all the content regarding reporting. So I scroll down in here, it's a pretty big list. What we're going to see is further down, Report Data Object Management. Sorry, let me get rid of this. This program is popping up on my side. Report Data Object Management. I'm going to go in there. That's my source content. And when we come in here, what we're going to see are all the predefined report data objects in our system. There's a lot of them in there. These are used by the existing reports in the environment, but we are allowed to create our own. So you see a report data object key here on the left-hand side. It does not have any spaces. Underscores are okay. People don't see that name. It's really just you see that during development. Description. Worthwhile to put something in there that makes sense for what you are trying to generate. And over here, the type. Custom. That's what we are trying to create. Other ones you find in the system tend to be standard. Every once in a while, you run into one that says standard read-only. Those are the ones you're not allowed to copy. You can't copy those. But the other ones that say standard, you can. You also see to the far right side, subject, either people or organization. So when you create a report data object, you identify, first of all, is this employee related, which is person, or is it related to the business structure, which is the organization? So for this first one, I'm going to choose Add here in the upper right corner. We are interested in showing employee-specific information, so I choose Employee View. And this is the form that opens up that allows me to create a new report data object. It doesn't have any definition just yet. I can start to build in my content. Let me just have this in front of me for a second. I hadn't been flipping pages in front of me to see where I am right now. I've already built this myself, actually, but I just want to show you the basics, make sure you're looking for the right content. So up here, I may not name this exactly what you are going to name this. I'm going to say accruals 2. You're going to name yours accrual underscore balances underscore EE. I already have the original one built into my system. It will not allow me to build 2 of the same name. And down here, balances, I'm going to say 4 employees. DO means data object. So get these 2 items in here. Column relationship rules. It is checked initially. You want to leave it checked. Yes, checked, enabled, good. It's a good thing for everybody. Yes. And then down below, columns. No columns are chosen just yet. I want to add some. So when I choose Add on the right-hand side, this is what pops up the data dictionary. This is our interaction with the data from the Workforce Dimensions database. Might take a little bit of time for it to open the first time. It's been really quick lately, I will say. When we first started off with Workforce Dimensions a while ago, it would take up to 90 seconds sometimes for that to open, so they have definitely improved upon it. But don't be surprised if it lags a little bit the first time. It is trying to open up over 1,200 columns from the database the first time you open this up. What we see here are entities and categories. These are both means of classifying the actual columns in the database. And here's the column name. So there's an accrual code type right there. Excuse absence indicator. Description, very often right now, is the exact same thing as our column name. Hopefully later on that'll be more descriptive. And over here to the right is just the data type. We're not too concerned about that. What we're really concerned about is the column name here in the center. And we're going to be providing you what the names are of the columns so you know what to look for. It just takes getting used to it a bit. People sometimes say, well, how am I supposed to know what the name of the column is? We are working on some documentation that will go along with the content in the system about the names of the columns. But right now, you could also consider as well, if you're looking for something employee related, if you typed in employee, either entity or category, that would start to limit you to only employee related columns. It would help to filter it down. Let's see, possible to create a new column or is it built in? This is actually built in. So this is predefined in our system. There's no way to add a new column to this data right here. So not to this, unfortunately. The column name is what I want to use. This is our filter line up top there. That's what that's for. You don't have to open up a filter. It's there automatically. And in the documentation, what we're having you do down here in the bottom in step 8, we say click add, which is what I did to open up that form. Don't forget about this one up here. People miss that one every single time because they focus on the big box down below with the orange header. Don't forget about 8A. In 8A, we're looking for the first field we want, the full name. Full name right there. So I have to be able to bring in full name to look for the content. Now, they don't tell you exactly what the name of the field is, the actual name of the column. They tell you to type in full name, but it will be only one that I have. So if I type in full space name, let's see. If I do that on the column name, full space, and you start to see anything that has the word full will pop up and see how it filters down. Full N may be there, full name. Employee full name is the only column in our database that has that combination of letters in that order. You can see what we have right here. It's in the entity employee details. You want to be really aware of the entity here because sometimes there's a duplication. We could have an employee full name in the employee details entity. You could have another one that's maybe in the audit section or the accrual section. And what happens here is because the relationship rules are built in, if you start to select columns from a specific, let's say, topic, other than just the employee, but like looking at schedule content, or looking at audits or accruals, you're kind of already telling the system, I'm going to focus on that type of information. And the minute you go down a path like that, the list of columns available the next time you come in is far less than what you had in the beginning. It starts to lock it down to only related columns. That's what the relationship rules are doing. So you have to be cautious. That's when people say, I can't find that. I already brought in these two, but I can't find the next one it's asking me for. Odds are what that means is when you selected one of those first two, you accidentally picked one from the wrong entity, which now blocked you from seeing the other columns you wanted. In this case, there's only one, so not a big deal here. I could click on this, you get it all listed up top, and they show you a label. And this is really the only place. There's maybe one other place, but it doesn't work very well at all in the reporting. This is the only place we can change this label. It doesn't change the label in the data dictionary. It's still named that in the dictionary overall, but I can change it in how it displays as my column header in the report. That will become the column header in the report. So if I don't feel the need to say employee full name, maybe just employee name, I can take out full. That's okay. You can change it. If you want to call that something entirely different, you can. And I choose add column. And it gets added down below here. This is the name as it is listed in our data dictionary, the actual column name. This is the label I'm choosing to display for it. And it's coming from the category called employee. And I keep going. I choose add again. Brings you back up into the data dictionary. You can only add one at a time. I can't grab more than one at once because it does allow you to rename them as you are brought in. Down below here, I got that first one. Did add in the first one, and then we're kind of repeating step 8A for all the rest of these. Next one I'm looking for is employee ID. But notice the entity. So this is what I want you to pay attention to over here. Be really careful that you're picking from the right entity because that's when you run into trouble because you're now going down the wrong path, essentially, based on what we're looking for. I'm trying to find employee ID. So I type in employee ID. Notice there's two, and people grab that first one. Notice the problem with that first one? The entity says audit. We're trying to get to accrual balances. If I choose employee ID from audit, I'm giving a heads up to the program I'm focused on audits, not accruals. And I will never see accrual code name come in afterwards or be available to me afterwards if I choose it from the audit entity. So make sure you choose it from employee detail. You're really very safe with anything that says employees or employee detail because everything is related back to your employees for the most part. Choose that. Maybe I want to call this emp ID. So you can relabel these as you want. Maybe you call that something entirely different, the number assigned to the person in your environment. Add that in. That's my next one. So let's keep going with this. And once I start to identify the topic I'm going for, like accrual code, once I do this and choose accrual code name from the accrual code entity right there, now I'm making a decision of the type of data. Right now it's still very open-ended. If I take that out for a second, look at the scroll bar, there's still a lot of content in here, right? See how big that scroll bar is? There's lots and lots of data here. The minute I start to type in accrual, I select this one, maybe just call it accrual code, add the column in. The next time I go in, because now I'm looking at the accrual entity and category versus just employee data, the scroll bar won't go as far. If I go down through this, there's still quite a bit of content, but not nearly as much as I had before. It is still locking this down. Next one I'm going to go into is like available. Money, hours, days, we're bringing all those in. So one by one, you're trying to add these in. So you keep using the column name all the way through, type in there, being careful of the entity as you go through, get all those in place. I will say as well that what this is going to do is it's going to add all these in. You only see 5 at a time. The system at the bottom of this form only shows you 5. You're going to end up with 7. So don't be surprised if you only see 5, but you could swear you brought in all of them. There's going to be a scroll bar on the right. I don't see a scroll bar yet, but I will once I exceed 5, and that allows me to scroll up and down. The system will bring these in alphabetical order for you. So sometimes it kind of throws employee out of the range because you see everything starts with A. So you're going to build all this in, add all your columns in based upon what's actually listed there in this table and the step 8A as well at the very top. And you save it. So I hit save right there. This is my accruals 2. I'll show you what you're looking for is actually this guy because I built it before. It's going to look like this. Going to have a nicer name up top, better description. I see about 5 items down here up to balance date, but I do have a scroll bar on the right side because there's a couple things below that as well. I scroll down, there's my employee full name, my employee ID. You're going to get to reports to later. It's not part of your IDEO right now, but that's something else I built in right now. So that's your plan. That's all I want to have you do right now. We're going to step through this little by little till we get used to the process. If I come out of here, back to my system, give that a second. So right here on the screen in the Adobe presentation, I'd like you to work on just page 7. Please don't go any further than that because there's another few confusing points when you start a brand new report that I want to show you first. We're going to design and create that new report data object for use for this first report. If you have any questions as you're going through, if you get a little bit stuck with any of our instructions, please let me know. If you get all done with it, give me a green thumbs up. Your login information is at the top here in the orange section. You're going to be logged in as Sean most of the time, for this one especially just as Sean Ivan. And our password is case sensitive, automate 1 exclamation point with a capital A. All right, I'll be quiet while you work on that, but let me know if you have any trouble, and a green thumbs up when you're done. I'm sorry, I didn't put this in here correctly. Let me see. Manish, are you looking for the tenant or for the courseware when you say the link? The tenant. Okay, so yep, when you are going into the class environment here, so this is kind of the new process. When you went into the class this morning to get into the Adobe session, there's this box that usually opens up. And that box right there is supposed to have access now to not only the classroom, but also to the launch tenant right there. So that should allow you to get into the tenant as well. So if you went through an email instead, where you didn't get quite into it, yeah, yep, for the email. If you go for the email, I think it would come back here. We say via the link in your class reminder, the contains links to the Knowledge Map Live course. When you click on it, you're prompted to log in. So that might be also from the email as well. Yes, you're absolutely right. Nope, did not work from the email. Can you log into Knowledge Map Live directly, Manish? Do you have that? You might have that for another purpose for other classes sometimes. Okay, yeah, try to get in there. When you log into it then, there should be a registration section towards the left-hand side. And with that, you can start to see any classes you're set up for. And Karen, when you say logged in successfully, what menu tab to get to reports? To get to reports. When you log in as Sean, you'll be following along with the instructions there to use the main menu icon, which looks like 3 horizontal bars in the upper left-hand corner. And that'll open up a menu for you, which would get you into what they're saying is, let me see, administration and the application setup. Okay, sure. And Manish, just let me know how you're doing if you managed to get in there. I'm sorry, I thought you were in there already. Okay. Credentials to log in. So did you get to the login page, Manish? Yep, so right there. So we're logging in as Sean Ivan, and there's our password, automate1 exclamation point. So I'll close this down. I'll come back to the other form. That's at the top of this page instead. Over here. So there we go, right on the top in the orange right there. That's what we're doing. So Sean Ivan and automate1 exclamation point. Okay, Karen, I think you got further there. Good. Karen, you don't have the courseware at all, the document that I was showing? Okay, let me just try to put it up here then. It is available through the emails we send you, but maybe for some reason those are getting blocked. Hold on, share. I gotta close it over here. Okay, so right there in the bottom right corner, Karen, of the Adobe screen, there's a file there that says Info Access Admin Essentials Basic Report Handout. Kind of has a big name. That is the document that I've been showing you on the screen that we're trying to use for the exercise. So you can try to download that. You can click on it and choose Download File at the bottom. It may prompt you one more time in the taskbar to actually download it. Just make sure where it is so you can save it and get to it. We're going to be using that throughout the class, so you do want to have a copy of it somehow if you can print it. Okay, sure. Yeah. Hide that there. All right, there we go. If anybody else is getting stuck in anything, please let me know. We usually do like an 80-20 rule in these classes with our exercises and coming back from breaks and such. If about 80% of the people got done with the exercise, we tend to move forward. Doesn't mean the rest of you can't catch up. If you're still working on it, that's okay. That happens sometimes. It's just a matter of, making sure all your connections are in place then. And we just kind of keep moving from there, but you can always watch my demo and then continue on all the way through. Let's wait for maybe one more person to get all set there, and then we will start taking a look. Okay. Let me see. Do I have? Oh, that was the same Bing, I think. I'm counting for the Bings. Let me see. I'll give a couple more minutes here. Thanks. Okay, I think that's a happy medium probably between the people who finished a little while ago and people who are probably just about to finish here. So I will just start to demonstrate the next piece, which is the build of the unpublished reports. So for those of you who are still kind of working on it, maybe just pause for a second. That's okay. What you can do is always save what you have so far and go back into it. Just watch my screen though so I can explain what the issues are we run into when we create the unpublished report. That's going to be on our pages 8 and applying formatting to 9. So if I come back to my screen here, so first of all, this is where we got left off. Report data objects, you've saved it. It's out there, probably prompted you at the top. It says successfully saved. But now you have to somehow navigate around to get to where the reporting is. There's two ways to get there. Either in the upper left-hand corner, choosing the main menu icon. Once Sean goes into the setup, the main menu changes to all the content from the setup. Some people prefer this way. I can very quickly see right in there in that same menu, a little further down, unpublished reports. But it is a little different looking than all those blue headers that you have with the columns that sometimes make more sense to people. So I tend to prefer it a different way, but this does work here. I usually, instead of choosing the main menu, I choose the home icon. Because as well, the home icon has changed to the normal setup page. So that's the home of setup right now. So I'll get my blue boxes, I'll see common setup, so expanded. To me, this makes a little bit more sense, but whichever way works for you. What I'm trying to do is get to unpublished reports. Down the same section, common setup. A little bit below report data object right here, unpublished. That's where you always start. And I choose that. It's going to change my form. Now, normally you don't have anything in here. Most of the time when you're working on a report, you save the report, you publish it, and then nothing remains in this form. But you could have a report in here for a while if you are still in the process of working with it. That's okay. And we have one in there just to prove the point that something could be in there. It doesn't have a lot to it. The report name, the type is custom here, and it always will be for your content, when it was last updated and by whom. What I want to do is create a brand new report though. Brand new. So I have to use this create option in the upper left-hand corner. Now this is when the system is trying to open up another application on top of Workforce Dimensions. It's called BIRT. That's our reporting tool. So it's B-I-R-T. And that is Business Intelligence and Reports. I can't spell that. And Reporting Tool. So that's the application we're using in Workforce Dimensions. But when you choose Create, it's trying to open that up as a pop-up kind of on top of the first application. So if you have pop-ups blocked on your system, it may prevent it from opening. So you want to watch around your environment there, check in the bottom and the upper right, see if there's a message up there saying it's going to block that, and allow it. So mine should already allow because I had dealt with this earlier. I choose Create in the upper right corner, and it's going to try to open up Report Studio essentially, which is the BIRT version of a development tool. And I get this. I get some menu bar options in the upper left-hand corner, File, Edit, View, Insert Data Formats, Data and Visualization on the left, and then there is some kind of a structure there. The report has a Kronos logo, place for a title, and that's where I start. So right now there's nothing defined. What I'm trying to do, oop, did I close that down? I did. Come back in here. Where is this thing? This one right here. Sorry to post that, I had to shut it down. Okay, get back into this. So you know what I'm talking about. We just did 7 before, we're talking about page 8. So far I just did Create, got into Report Studio. If it blocks you, watch out for the pop-ups. What I want to do now is what that says in step 4. I want to do Data, Manage Data. Because the system currently does not have any idea what its source content is. This is when you relate the information between the report development tool and the report data object we created a few moments ago. This is where the connection is made. So I have to go into that first and then find my accrual balance is EE to identify that's my source content. So up top, data, manage data. It's only going to show us custom data objects here. There's my other one for accruals too that I'm playing with. I have a couple more in here than you will. That's okay. Make sure you choose the right one. Move that left to right, and I click OK. And there's a little circle that goes round and round, a little blue circle. That's in place of an hourglass. You may not see that on my side, but that's what we get when the system is processing. And you wait for the blue circle to finish. Mine's still going round and round there for a moment. Ooh, it's thinking big thoughts, apparently. There it goes. Now you're going to see a message that popped up on my screen. It's kind of hard to tell. It's right above this little rectangular box. It says error, something about WFM common 1234 failed to retrieve some data from the provider and looks for reports too. That's because I went ahead and I brought in another column that you're going to not bring in until the next step here. That's going to be a part of an update you do later. I went ahead and did it. You will not get that error message right now. And that error message is more related to permissions than it is a real problem in my system. So I'm not going to worry about it. That's okay. What I do want to continue with, though, are the instructions about what else do I do. I want to go back up to data and choose parameters because I want to identify a selection of dates. Some kind of date criteria, date range, that will help me to limit my records on the report to something useful when I'm developing. We're going to go through the end of the month. We could even just do today. That'll be good enough because it's month-end balances. I can get that. Just coming back in here, going back up to data, choosing parameters. What is happening here? Data, parameters. My system's being really slow. Okay, this doesn't look promising. Parameter. Oh, all right, there it goes. So that looks weird. It's trying to open up the form, but it's got it overlapping. Wait a minute. Can I cancel out of there somehow? That's bizarre looking. When I was testing this earlier, it didn't give me this much grief. Okay, I know this is really hard to see, but up here there's a start date and end date. I don't know why the gray background is not there for some reason, but here's my start date right there. Here's my end date. This is supposed to be an entire form that is opening up on top of the Report Studio, not interacting with it and looking translucent here all the way through. So I'm going to put this to the end of the month. Use my calendar component right there. Is that not going to work for me? Okay, let me do it right here. Bum, 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 bum. There we go. I put in there. Can I possibly okay this? Where's the button? Oh, man. Okay. All right. Close. Yeah. Hold on. Scroll balances. When we put a file name in here, you're seeing me do this a bit early. When you put a file name in, no spaces, the end user will not see this file name. I'm doing this a bit out of order right now, but I'm doing it because my system's giving me grief. Ago when I was testing, so I'm not sure what its problem is right now. Employee balances, okay. Let me back in there, see if I can do that one more time. Edit. Okay, come back in where I was. Try that process again. But super. Make sure this is in here. Did it do that much? It's got that. Okay, good. That step worked. Just check something on my other computer here. Sometimes we have some little hiccups in the environment that are causing trouble. There, that's what it's supposed to look like. That form there, where there's an actual background on that page. So I'm going to try to change this to the 31st, and then choose the OK button. You don't have to worry about all this hyperfine selector down there. Whatever it's using is just fine. All you really care about are dates. And click OK. So these steps that I'm playing with right here are just these two here, data manage data and data. That's what I was trying to do all that time. I did it already as well. I had to. We do talk a little bit further down here. When you do file name, we're going to save here. Accrual balances by employees, so mine's named a little bit off. I'll description in if you'd like to. So I'm getting there. In the meantime, I want to show you the rest of it because I don't have any content on the report. And generate a visualization. Manish, for the most part, you want to consider we're just in development right now. So for development purposes, they want you to just go ahead and put dates in there. It's going to use that every time you go to preview, essentially, when you're developing. But for the managers, for them to actually use it during publication, you don't have to worry about the dates being in there, the hard-coded dates. The system will automatically drop those and replace it with the normal time period drop-down that we have for anything else you use in the data views and reports. So you don't have to worry about, you don't have to build that yourself. That's another automated process they have built in, which typically in a report you have to build that in yourself. Not anymore. It's been taken care of. Yeah, but good question. All right. So I got my data in there. So the next phase is where everybody gets thrown off. The instructions are right here. It says in step 7, click in the body of the report panel to display the available data objects on the Data tab. Now everybody says, what does that mean? Nobody knows what the body of the report panel is and what it's talking about on the Data tab. Let me explain what that is. First of all, what's the Data tab? That's this guy. Way up here in the upper left corner, it says Data. That's the Data tab. Notice how there's nothing there. It's totally blank. Nothing in that whole panel. It wants something there. Despite the fact we already went up to the data on the menu bar and identified our report data object, it also wants it listed here. And the only way to get that to list there is to come over here to where it says select and drag. At this moment, that's considered the body structure of the report. It doesn't have any body, so that's just about all it has. You just click. Just by clicking in this strange little box right here, select and drag data items. Click right in there. Something's going to pop in over on the side. I click, and it gets something. It says, oh, you're looking at accrual balances. Yes, I am. So that's one thing that throws people off right there. Don't understand quite what that is. You click in the box, and something shows up. Once something shows up there, then it means we can go to that other tab, Visualization, to identify the type of structure we want to use to display our content. So I choose Visualization now. These are all the different features we can use to display our content. The table is by far the most popular. Try and get a table into my report. Now I'm not trying to drag into that little box despite the fact its instruction says select and drag into this little box. We don't need that. Just go to this blank section below that box. That's okay. That's also the body structure. For what we're doing right now, this is where the table can fit. What I tend to do is I click on the table first. This is a bit finicky, it really is. There's a couple situations here inside the BERT tool that are a little inconsistent, a little finicky, that throws off sometimes, gets you a little frustrated, you think something is not working. It will work, you just have to kind of, So what I usually do is I click on it, then I click and drag, and I try not to go too fast. If you go too fast, it doesn't always get what you're doing. So I click on it first, and now I'm going to hold my mouse pointer down on table, and click and drag it over down below that weird little box. I'll have my little blue circle with a little attachment next to it, a little circle with a plus sign, and I let go. Notice how it did not do anything that time, or it's being super slow and showing it. It doesn't always work. I might have waited too long when I was talking. Table, drag, let go. There it goes. So it told me twice to get it. I've had to do that 5 times in class sometimes to get you all to see what's happening and for it to work for me. So it's okay. It will work. It'll work. You just have to kind of work with it. It's like a timing issue, how fast you drag, and also related to resources on your system sometimes. How many resources are available to BERT when it's running in combination with workforce dimensions behind the scenes. That's kind of what's happening. So what you do is available from the report data object. We don't say anything else beyond that. And they start to tell us what they want us to bring in. Now you can take all this. I'm going to ignore reports 2 right now because you don't have that one yet. I can move these all over with like a shift click, move them all over here to the right, which is our currently selected columns, and then you can rearrange them. I could put the name up top with the arrow, and maybe their ID. And then accrual code we want, and balance date. And then we have our hours, days, and money. So this order, top to bottom, is how the columns will be displayed left to right in the report. And we okay that. and you hope to get a blue circle. Now, if you don't get the blue circle and it doesn't do anything, you gotta just try it again. It sometimes just gives up on you then. This is what we usually will see. We'll see something that has blue headers across the top with the names of your columns, the columns you just selected, and some partial data. This is kind of a snapshot of our data. Sometimes we don't see any data at all. That's okay. If you only get the blue column headers, you're still good. You can still develop a report. That's all right. But sometimes you get a little bit of data, sometimes a little bit more. But there's my original structure. What's happening right now is the entire table is selected. So remember, the table is my visualization. How do I know it's a table? Because of these 4 icons up here. See that trash can? This little chart icon right there, and an edit and a properties. When you have 4 icons up there, it means the entire table is selected, the whole thing. Versus if I were to click on, let's say, the accrual code column, like in that header, watch the icons. I'm going to click on the header in blue that says accrual code. See how the highlight changes? The highlight code, it's just identifying the accrual code column, not the entire table. And because of that, I have more icons now displayed in the upper right corner. So you want to be aware of that because there's going to be different times here where we want to focus on a column versus the table. So you do very much have to click on a column header to say, hey, I'm looking at that column. Even though your goal may be a right-click menu, if I do a right-click right away, when it's the table, that's not the right-click menu. That's not the correct right-click menu. That is for the entire table. See, it says reorder columns. That's for the whole table. That is not for that specific column. But if I were to click on the column first, a normal left click to highlight the column first, get all my icons, then I right-click, that is a right-click menu for just that column. So that's what you want to be aware of. It's very specific in terms of what you click on and what you're doing. Always just be sure you click on the column header first and work with that column, then you can do a right-click or choose an icon if you want to. So first of all, what do you want to do? Do you want us to change your title up top? So I can put a different title up here. Put that up top. When you press enter, it's going to center and make it bold. Beyond that, we talk about saving. Now, I kind of saved it already, but I'll show you what this icon is up top as well. You have a regular save icon. I'm going to be locked into the template structure. This is essentially a template, so it is built in. So it looks like that is kind of permanently in there, and we can't get around that, unfortunately. Yeah, so all this content up top here, these are some parameter references as well. They're deciding about those as they go through. And it does save us some work because typically when you have just a blank slate, you have to build everything on your own. That's why it makes it a bit quicker to build the reports now in the environment. Well, here's our icon. Do you have a save? That's exactly what you think. Save whatever we have. There's an undo if things go wrong. And this one right here that kind of looks like a play icon, like a play button on a VCR or something or whatever else you might have. That's save and view. Now, I already had to save mine, but I'm going to still save and view it here. It's going to bypass the form that prompts me for the file name because it already has my file name. I took care of that already. But it does prompt you for the dates. Every time you do save and view, it prompts you for the dates in case you want to change your dates. Sometimes it doesn't remember that you put in 531. Up top in the data menu, it puts in the same date, 522. That's okay. It'll still work. So what happens when I do this, when I go to my save and view up here? I click OK, and it's going to open up another tab up top. See this one right here, that little circle going, waiting for dimensions. And it's going to say iHub Viewer in a minute, and then it's going to say the name of the report with Interactive Viewer. If I hover over that, it says Accrual Balances Interactive Viewer. Now you might be aware already in the system in Workforce Dimensions that when you run a report, you can output to PDF, Excel, or interactive mode. This is the exact same thing as interactive mode, which means I'm allowed to kind of play with the content on the screen. I can maybe sort it differently, filter my content down differently, but any changes I make here will not affect the design of the report. Those changes will not be saved to the actual report. And also be aware there's 2 tabs now. There's this one that says Interactive Viewer, and that's just to look at the data. There's this other one that says Analytics Studio. That's the development side where you make your changes. So you just want to be aware of what tab you're on. And how you also know you're in the preview. The viewer window, you don't have any menu bar. There's no data menu up here, no visualization on the left-hand side. And up here in the upper right corner, you see the name of the report with the number of pages. So you see all that data right there. And go through a couple pages, see if I get some more data. Sometimes I will. Oops, too far. Not right there. So we save it, we give it a name, maybe. Sean decides, you know what, I'm going to pretty this up a little bit because even though Michael didn't request it, I know he's going to want to make some changes here. Sharad, I did not have to populate that. The 1 is in there automatically. What the 1 represents is all home. You might be familiar with the hyperfine queries. All home is what represents all the people that an employee is allowed to see. So when Sean is logged in, he's allowed to see certain people. When Michael logs in later on to run the report in the environment, he's allowed to see certain people. So it's not going to be that it's locked down to all home all the time. It just means that right now when Sean is logged in, the security passes all the way into the BERT tool here. So that 1 is identifying just the people Sean is allowed to see. That's also the reason I'm getting that error message that says you're not allowed to see reports to if I show that on the report, because Sean can't see that data. So the 1 means all home. Sure, no problem. Normally you can just leave that alone and it will just work fine for doing development. But this is just to play with it. I can take a look at it, but maybe looking at this now, we realize, you know what, balance state's kind of right there in the middle. I think balance state might be better on the far right side. Maybe I move that entire column over. Maybe I reset my employee ID values to be right justified. Maybe I want that date to be formatted differently. Maybe I want to sort the information different. So little things, but can make a difference when somebody looks at the data. So if I close the interactive viewer, and that's what you want to do, you always want to close this down. You can end up with this tab over and over again. You don't know which version you're looking at. So I'm going to close out the little X. That brings me back to the studio where I have my file, edit, view, insert, and my data and visualization. And here's my balance state right there in the middle. I want to move that column. So first I want to click on that column header. I'm working with that column, then I can drag it. So don't click and drag right away. Click first, let go of the mouse, then click and drag. So I'm going to click and drag now. See how the blue's moving over? Take it all the way to the right side, and when I have it where I want it, I let go. Might get a little circle going round and round for a bit, and then it should reposition balance state to the far right side of my report. There it is. What I also want to do, and all these things that I'm showing you right here are what the instructions are talking about, pages 8 to 9. Employee ID. Even though some of these are more alphanumeric, a lot of ours are just numeric, and we want them right aligned. So I could take employee ID. Click on that header for employee ID. Right-click on it. Here's alignment. So I could align left, right, or center the data in that particular column. I say align right. And it does it kind of right away there, even on my snapshot of my data. We also want to sort the data. That's always a really good idea, right? Sort your records so people can find the information they're looking for. There's a couple different ways to go about that. But if I want to provide a sort that goes by like a primary sort, a secondary sort, so multiple sort criterion, what I can do is use data. That's usually the easiest way. Way up top here, data. And there's sort. And I can choose the advanced sort to pick up to 3. And I could choose which of these I want to sort by. Maybe the employee name first, ascending. Maybe an ID after that, just in case you have 2 people with the same name. That happens every once in a while. And then by the accrual code. And even though this is just a snapshot right there, right when I click OK, this should reset. Thinking about it for a minute. And there we go. Goes from Gillespie all the way to Vesperia there. One more thing I might want to do, balance date. Even though I don't see the dates right here, I can still click on that column for balance date, the one I'd moved before, and I can decide how I want that data to be formatted. The system is well aware of the format of the column you're looking at. It knows that's a date column. So if I right-click on it, and I choose Format, and Format Data, we see Format Date Time As, because the system recognizes date time. And it gives us about 3 to choose from, but you're not limited to just those 3. What you can do is you can choose custom, and down here you can apply the format code. Now they show you a little snapshot down here of what some of the designators are for the weekday, the month, the day, the year, and such. I'll say back in that pre-learning content, we give you a list of what the codes are, so you could always look back there as well, Knowledge Map Live, to see the content. I'm going to do this. I'm going to put the day portion in first, then the abbreviation of the month name, MMM-YYYY. This is towards the bottom of your page 9, telling you to go through this. And click OK. Won't see anything right here because I can't see the dates anyway, but if I went to that viewer screen again, this save and view. Now remember, this is always a save and view. It always saves it when it brings up the preview screen. So be cautious of that if you don't want to save. Notice I went back to 522. That's okay. I'll still get data. I should get some better data here because I put this in alphabetical order, which is going to make more sense for my information. So a lot more data now. I see Adams right there, all the way through all the different people who are Adams, and sometimes multiple records for David and Eliza and Gail and Gary and such because we're looking at all their accrual codes. What their balances are. And over here, my date, DD is the day 22-May-2019. Now that MAY was not just because of the MMM, meaning 3 characters. MMM means the abbreviation of the month name. So it doesn't really abbreviate May because you can't do it for May. But if you have something else like September, you can get something like SCP for September. Or maybe SCPT, I'm trying to think what it does. But it does an abbreviation somehow. That's what you're going for, something like this. We have a decent looking report showing you accrual balances by employee. Let me close down my viewer window again. Notice my save icon is not there because when I do save and view, that drops out right away. When you're all done with that exercise and working on the report, you go to File, you just close. Now when you come back in here, you're only going to see daily staffing by zone because this is a static page. Mine has already been refreshed, which is why my report is showing up there. You will only see this one now. What you have to do is click the refresh icon in the upper right corner. And with refresh, it'll take a look again, and it should now show you the new report that you have just created. Your name will be a little bit better than mine. I think you'll say accrual balances by employee. Mine does not, but that's okay. So all these instructions right here for you. They start on page 8, talking about creating the unpublished report, initially generating your content. A little bit tricky to get through that process because it's a little bit hesitant sometimes to do what you ask it to. Just getting through that to get all these columns in place. Saving the file, accrual balances by employee, giving that a description as well. Okay that, take a look at it. Close that view mode when you're done after taking a look at that preview screen. And then go ahead and make some changes to it. Rearrange the columns, move balance date. Further down here, take that employee ID and right align it. Apply a sort. And reformat that date for the balance date. Change the date format. So all this is on pages 8 and 9. Now what I think we'll do is we're coming up on 2:30, pretty close to it. So let's take our 15-minute break first to get that kind of out of the way. Then I'll have you start working on this. Okay, so I'll come back here to my screen. Put the break time up here initially. And then when you come back from the 15-minute break, you'll see that I'm going to switch that over to those pages 8 and 9. You can get started on that. In the meantime, I do want to make sure you get some time off. There we go. If anyone's having trouble with their content, if you were not able to get the report data object created fully, because we do need that to get these next stages to work, please let me know. The pages we're working on next, which is just the unpublished reports. Those are on pages 8 and 9, but we are adding in some formatting as well with the rearrangement of the columns, aligning the data in our employee ID column, sorting the data, and then changing how the data is displayed. So just pages 8 and 9, please don't go any further than that. Thumbs up when you are up to that point. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. Rosalinda, you worked on that during the break? There you go. That's okay. Now take your break. Let's see, Karen. The data is at the top of the screen. So where you went in a moment ago to do data manage data, now there's another one, data parameters. So at the top of the screen itself, there should be the word data up there. We have file, edit, and such in the upper left-hand corner. How does that seem, Karen? Can you find it? Okay, yep, so you selected data, manage data. So with manage data, that's the very first step you do where you're supposed to select your report data object. So in there you should be able to find your accrual balances, EE, that you move over left to right. So that's the first step. The next one would be to go to data and then choose parameters, which is the second option down. So it's kind of two different steps. You go into data two different times. Once just select your report data object. The next just select the dates for the parameters. I try to come back here on my screen. Oops, I got bumped. Hold on. Asherat, no, you don't have to. You can even leave it on today's date. That's what it'll default to automatically, and it will still process. It'll still play with the data. Okay. Yes, we usually do that just to show you that you can put a range in if you'd like to, but you don't necessarily have to. So if it defaults back to today's date, you'll still get data for our case. Sure. So Karen, if I come back in here, this is just on my system to show you what those menu bar options are. So wait for that to pop up for a second. Okay, so up here on your menu bar, you have the words File, Edit, View, Insert Data, and Format. So under Data right there, you have Manage Data, and that's the one that allows you to choose. That accrual balance is EE, so you kind of move that left to right to select your source content. And then the other one is go back up to Data again and choose Parameters. So this will be up on the menu bar at the very top with the dark gray. You might be looking at this data option right here, which just has the end results of the report data object we selected. But they mean at the very, very top in the File, Edit, View, Insert menu. So data parameters there. And when you click on that, that should open up a list that talks about the date, start date, and end date. Sure, no problem. If anybody else is having trouble with the instructions, please let me know. Leave that open the screen for now. Come back over here. Oops. Sorry, everybody, I'll be all right with you. Okay, sorry. I am allergic to something. I don't know what's going on. I mowed the lawn yesterday and I could barely breathe when I was out there, and it's still affecting me today, so I had to go get a box of tissues, and I think we're a little bit better. So if I start sneezing or put myself on mute for a second, I apologize. I'll get right back to you. But let me clear the buttons there. Looks like most people are getting through that. Great. So this is our unpublished report. It's not yet available for anyone to run in the system. But let's see what's next. How do we get there? I come back in. Have the report here. We've done our save. And hopefully did the refresh as well on this form so you can see the report in the listing. If you don't see anything but the original daily staffing by zone, you probably haven't done a refresh in the upper right corner. So make sure you do so. Like we said, this is a static web page, so you have to kind of tell it to update to make sure the system sees the new report. And once we're there, we can have that report selected. My name is a little bit different from yours, but not bad. And we can publish it. So with the accrual balances selected here, I want to publish this to make it understood by Workforce Dimensions that there's a new report out there. So here's publish right there in the upper right corner. And we tell it the name. So mine was just accrual balances right there. Yours might be a little different. That's the report file name that has no spaces, maybe has underscores. And description and label, that's what the end user will see. So this is where we tend to put in the nice label that people will understand better, that looks a little bit nicer overall. So for the label, maybe I want to say accrual. If I can spell that, that'd be great. Accrual balances by employee. And description can be a little bit more elaborate if you want to. List of employee accrual balances. Maybe something like that. So they'll see both of these. Now, this is not absolutely required that you populate the label, but we highly recommend it because if you don't put a label in, it's going to have to use this, the actual report file name, which doesn't look that great. So report file name definitely required, highly recommended, description and label, and then default output type. So we said there's PDF, Excel, and interactive for your output types. This is simply what the default is when it pops up initially. It is not going to prevent them from choosing a different output type. They're going to have us output this to PDF. And then we get to decide as well what category to display the report in. So it's not currently assigned to any category. You want to put it somewhere where people can find it. We're going to put this into custom reports. So down here's custom. You just click on that row. You click on it, turns blue, gets a check mark, it's added up top here. So that's where it's going to pop up. So when Michael goes through on the report, you might tell him it's going to be in the custom reports category. And further down towards the bottom, we talk about parameters. Now there's 3 listed here. The system really takes its best guess looking at the content for the report, and it pre-built these in for us. So Hyperfine selector, yes. You're going to want that in there. That's your security. That one we saw kind of on the parameters form, that was representing all home. That's just during the development of the report. This Hyperfine selector will let the person running the report choose whatever Hyperfine they want to use. So yeah, it's a really good idea. We see over here it's mandatory, and we want to display that. Let them make a choice. Just skip this second one for a moment, come down to time frame. Very often you do want the person to be able to choose whatever time period they want. Either a symbolic time period, like previous pay period, or week to date, or an actual range of dates. So very often mandatory, and you want to display that option. Now this one in the middle, show chart, that kind of always is in the list. In case you have a chart, we don't have a chart. So it's sort of silly to put a prompt up there that says, hey, you want to see the chart? And they say yes, but there is no chart. So we probably don't want to even display that. You can see over here it's not mandatory, but it is set to prompt the user in display. So I might want to switch to that. I can choose this show chart and choose edit up above there. You can see mandatory, it's still set to false, that's fine. Display, I don't want to say true, I want to say false. Don't even prompt them about this, there is no chart. So slight change, I apply that change. And having done that now, this is the publication of the report, giving a heads up to Workforce Dimensions. Here's the name of it. Here's what I want you to call it. Here's the output type by default. And some more other settings down below about our custom report category and the parameter. So let's see. The parameters are, yes, they are. They're based upon partly what we've selected. Is it an employee view? Is it a business structure view? The system is kind of predefined to look at what we have selected, and it kind of built this in, just like they did for the data dictionary and how they have the templates up top there. I'm sorry, the template report design and the parameters are listed up top, like printed for and query name. You don't see those passing in here, but they are automatically coming in. So yeah, they are really built in here. They tried to automate as much as they could in this system with Workforce Dimensions versus what we used to have in Workforce Central, where you had to decide everything on your own, which is a lot more work for people. Yes, so there we go. I'm simply omitting the chart because I don't have anything. And I save over here in the upper right-hand corner. Not a lot of settings, but something to let Workforce Dimensions know about the report. And we end up coming back to published reports. I started off in unpublished, but I published it, so now we return to published. And in here are all the reports we have available. So we see here the report name. That's the actual report file name, no spaces. Description and label. This is what the end user sees, these labels. Accrual balances by employee. Detailed summary. Many of these are standard in our system. You see the type over here on the right, standard reports versus custom. This is the one we just created. You can even see right here the report date object name. Sure, let's see. As mentioned earlier, all home may give different results for different people. Yes, that's actually built in the setup. When you initially implement during your onboarding process for your different managers, usually the Kronos team helps you decide who are those individual managers allowed to see in the system. So that's kind of pre-built in the environment there. I'm not exactly sure where the settings are, Sharad. I apologize. I'm not sure about that level of detail, but it is kind of predefined in the system that when you have a new manager sign in and they're going to oversee people, somewhere in the environment you actually assign them to see certain employees in the system. We could base upon labor level sets potentially, some other content, but there's some kind of criteria that identifies which people they can see. And then you're absolutely right, the all home will vary then, depending upon who's logging in physically and what their permissions are. So I apologize, I'm not sure exactly where that is in the system, but it is somewhere in the setup, and during implementation they try to get that ready for you. But you may have to worry about that later when you load in a new person, if you hire a new manager, trying to decide what their settings should be as well. I believe probably in the system administrator guide there, Sharad, for that kind of data. All these guides we have for the content, you probably find some information about that on possibly community or in some of the admin type classes that we have for the administration of the system. This report data object over here, that's handy that they give you that. So if maybe I know that I need to add a column to the report data object, I don't have to open up the report physically, the design of the report, to remember what the name of that report data object is. You can see it right there. That's pretty handy. So to this point, what I've done is I published. So that's these next steps here, publishing the basic report. About 8 steps right there, nothing too fancy. But finally, I have to provide the report to the person who's going to actually run it. Still, Michael can't access it. Still have to deal with the report data access profile. So that's coming back in here. Back up to that little home icon there, because I need to get into access profiles up here. So everything else has been down here in common setup. This is under access profiles instead. And we have data access profiles, and within that block of content, you have reports further down. We choose reports. We only have a few in our system. And Michael is assigned to our manager report data access profile, so there's the manager. I would click on manager to edit that somehow, to add the new report. So I choose manager and edit. So there's the description of it up top. And notice down here, here's the reports they can currently see, people in that profile, and anything that has a yellow highlight, essentially, and a check is available to them. And what's great is what they did is they've added any new custom reports at the very bottom of the list. So you just scroll all the way down. Here it is, accrual balances. I click on that. And that gets added in as another report that the employee can see. Now I'm just going to do this one for now. Just ignore this. That's my other one for the next exercise. I just don't want to come back in here. You still have to build that one later. Going to save that. So having done all that now, Sean has created the report data object. He started off with a brand new report as unpublished, made decisions about the report, what was its source content, what were the date criteria, wanted a table visualization, built a title up top, did some basic formatting, saved the report, published the report, made it available to the right profile. Now Sean kind of gives a heads up to Michael, says, hey, it's out there. He can sign out. Now I want you to be aware when Sean signs out, we've been back and forth into setup multiple times, so that opens up another tab every single time. So you can see up top here that anywhere it says SSO, that is Workforce Dimensions open. So I see it up in once, twice, and 3 times right there. I want to close down a couple of these because I only want one of those by the time we log in as someone else. If you have it open multiple times, it'll have some trouble sometimes trying to switch between one person and another. And this is where we give Michael a heads up, and Michael logs in. Michael Martin, using the same password. Michael's not going to go into setup. He's going to try to run the report. Where he usually does that is under the main menu, data views and reports. And there's a report library. That's where he's going to find any reports made available to him. Now when you first come in here, you tend to see completed, in progress, upcoming. If anything's been run today, you might see some other data in those blocks. Nothing's been run yet. I want to choose Run Report up top. And this opens up a panel on the right that shows us the categories available to people in this profile, specifically in this case, Michael. We added the report to the custom reports category. We'd probably tell Michael that so he's not looking around in here. He says, okay, I'm going to go to custom reports. Now I see 2. That's all right. I'm going to focus on this one, accrual balances by employee. That was the label I had typed in. If I click on that, I see any description as well right there, listed employee accrual balances. And I select that at the bottom. And it'll get prompted with the data, similar to the parameters we saw when we were publishing. It asks me about the time frame up top. Do I want to do just today? Or do I want to do one of these symbolic time periods? Or do I want to select a range? I'm going to select a range. Leave that in there for this. Come over here, 31st. We can always change that if we want to. Want to apply that. And down here is our hyperfind. And I'm allowed to use all home or anything else that Michael's allowed to use, which will differ in terms of the employees we see. I'm going to use all home. See PDF, I also have the other 2 options, Excel or Interactive. Now my goal is to try to run this for all 3. For those of you who may be trying to play catch up a little bit here, please be aware if you just get it running as a PDF, that's good enough. It's all right. You don't have to use all 3 of these. But I want to see what the PDF looks like first, so I run the report. When you hit run, it goes into progress first, in the progress block. When it's done processing, it will give you a box up top. Report is completed. When you click OK, completed box, down at the bottom it prompts you, do you want to open or save? Sometimes it does a security check on it. I'm going to say open. There's my report. I can make it bigger. So there is the data for the accrual balances. It's filled in all this content now. It knows my time period I selected. All home. Over here, the date and time it processed. Michael Martin was the person logged in and writing this report. So all these were kind of predefined and ready to go. We didn't have to build that in. The template had that. There's a Kronos logo. And we see our data. Eliza, Gail, Gary, George, and all the accrual codes they have with their balance date on the right. If I close that down, in the instructions here, we talk about reviewing the report initially as Michael, PDF, and then we say change the output format of the report. This is coming into your page 11. We mentioned using the right arrow. Now you can do right arrow to rerun the report. It just saves you 2 steps. having to choose Run Report again and select the report from the category list. That's all it does. But it saves you a couple steps. So I will do it for this first one to output to Excel. But I would highly recommend in step 3 here, when you try to go to interactive, don't choose rerun. For some reason, rerun and interactive do not play nicely together. I would just hit Run Report again. So I'll show you that. I'm going to do this one a little differently. It will probably still generate the report for you, but it won't allow you the interactive features, let's say. Let me try this first. Excel with the right arrow. See what that does. So we come back out of here. Here's the right arrow we're talking about right there. It kind of looks like a greater than sign. That's the rerun button. Because the report's been run already, it's been identified already, accrual balances by employee, knows what report it is. So it opens up, shows us the prior processing settings. It was less than a minute to run, 7 seconds. And I can choose rerun at the bottom. Or I could view it again. It's going to rerun. Still going to prompt me. And it doesn't remember my selection criteria. I still have to populate it. I can do the same thing here. Range. Oops. Click on end date. Go to there. Apply that. All home's fine. I go out to Excel. And run the report as Excel. Goes into in progress. Wait for that to finish. Okay, that's going to pop up below again. Open that. That is running a security scan on it for a moment. That's okay. And there's my data. So I see it more in the column and row structure you have in Excel. I will tell you the content we have up top is kind of getting in your way. It is. It's causing additional column splits in the data there. That's why I see like A, B, C already by the time I'm right here going into employee ID. This is what's happening up here that's causing that to occur. But this data is solid down here. So that's the Excel format. Output there. Now what I'm going to do is not use either of these icons. I don't want to use the greater than sign on either one of those. It just doesn't work as well. I've tested this pretty thoroughly. I have a lot more luck by just coming back up to Run Report. I didn't mean to click on that. There we go. Run Report, just like we did in the beginning. And just choose the report again. It just seems to work better. Go into Custom, choose the report, choose Select. That's all it really does with Rerun is just that anyway. Then I put in my range of dates. Apply that, choose Interactive, and run. In progress. When it's done, box pops up again at the top, but I won't have a panel at the bottom that asks me how to open it. It's just going to open right away. The BERT tool just shows the interactive viewer. So I click OK, and just goes and opens. So there's my data, got my title. The font's always pretty small, unfortunately, I can't do a whole lot with it. But if the interactive features are working properly for me, like right here where it says available balance hours, I could click there, and I get the icons up top. This is a filter to limit my records somehow. This would allow me to sort descending or ascending. Let me see if one of these will work. Click to sort descending. And it does. So it's allowing the person looking at the data right here to rearrange the content, even have some right-click options here. I can build in filters right from there, try to sort it differently. Accrual code, I could try to filter on this if I want to. Filters down here. So this is what interactive mode is. It's very similar to our viewer window, that interactive viewer window you see during development. It's the exact same thing. Same idea here as well, though, that if the person makes changes right here on the screen, it doesn't save those changes to the original report. They go back and run the report again later. None of their changes are reflected. For this particular report, I could come up here to the main menu. I could save this out if I want to with the changes I have made. Okay, let's see. After you rearrange data through interactive, can you then export to Excel? We have save as, we have export data. Let's see. What's it let us do? CSV, value separator, UTF, what's our encoding? Does it let us do something in here? Well, the CSV would get you into a format that you could probably bring into Excel. Think about that, Karen? So that may be what it is. Yeah, export content here, export data, export content. I'm assuming, let me see if this will even work for me. Let me see. Do I have to move this over at all? Why do I need that? What does this do? Let's see. No column selected. Okay. What does that do? Time frame name. That seems strange. Export column data. Column header. Rosalina, let's see. We say, can you remove the headers and show us the results? When you say the header content, do you mean like the logo for Kronos and such at the very top there? That doesn't help us at all. That doesn't help me at all. What is this giving me? A comment? Some features may operate if you save it in the comment, save it in Excel file format. I'll play with that while all of you are working on something else here a little bit later. I'm not sure that that output will let us get to Excel, and I don't think that I can necessarily drop out the headers, Rosalinda. I don't think I can change that or take those out of there, because then you won't have any identifying information at the top, and that could be confusing. Now, when you go out to Excel, I will say you could take out that column in Excel, because that is part of your table. So in Excel output, you could probably drop that out at that point. But right here, these tend to want to stay in here. Means you say when you click on parameter, how to remove parameter screen. Huh, okay, I'm not getting these. Let me see. I'm trying to figure out what you guys are aiming for. Hold on. Above the Kronos, I go. Let me see. Above. So you're talking about the main menu up here? Or you mean back in development in niche? Okay, main menu. Yep. Above Kronos. Let's see. Parameters there. That's interesting. You can bring up the parameter screen if you click on it. So I'm sorry, so I'm seeing parameter right here. Right, so if I click on parameters right there, it does bring up this panel on the very bottom. So did you click on it so you brought that up? The big gray section? Yes, and way over on the right-hand side, almost in the scroll bar, there's a little left arrow next to run report. That's the close. There you go. That'll drop it out. Sure. Let me go back there. Let me see. I missed a couple questions. So Rosalinda, I think the best bet for removing column headers is actually exporting to Excel first and then taking out the row in Excel, because that is just part of your table. And once you're in edit mode within Excel, you could do whatever you want to the table. So I'd probably export to Excel first and just drop out the column headers there if you'd like to. You may not want to overall to be able to still tell what the difference is between those columns, but that's probably the best way to do it. Probably can't do it in the PDF, and I don't believe they're going to let us do it right here. I think these are always going to be here. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything to allow us to get to that content. Let me see, do we export? Does that do anything? Oh, we got to export to Excel here. Huh. Let me see what that does. Is it just that column? Oh, that did work. Oh, that's even easier. Okay. So the question had been originally, let me see. Oh, who was that coming from? Let's see. Karen, you were talking about when you rearrange the interactive, can you export to Excel? Yes, it wasn't where I thought it was going to be, though. So here I have them in sorting descending order right now. So it is holding what the setting changes were that I made. So I come out of here. What I did is I didn't come up to the main menu. I didn't do it up there. I actually did it on a column. If I chose the column, any one of this, I just chose the first column. I clicked on it, and I did a right click. And there was an export content at the bottom. And then export really just brought up Excel. So I brought up Excel here. I think there might be something else in there. It's got a couple other things, but Excel is what we're going for. I just clicked OK, and then it did have the changes that I had made. So is that what you were thinking? Sure. It's kind of in a weird spot, not the main menu. It's going to be on a column header. Okay. So let's see. I think I missed something. What does export content do? So Rosalina, that's what export content does. It looks like this one's better. This one's better on the column header than it is on the main menu. And let me see, column header, parameter, you got that one, Manish, that was for you. Josie, let's see. How do you run schedule reports that can be emailed directly to managers? The schedule is when you are back in the reports. Let me cancel out of here for a second. Close this guy down. Ooh, this is my interactive viewer again, so you want to make sure which one you're closing down sometimes, just like when we preview. We have reporting jobs up here. So that's pretty much when we're talking about scheduling. It goes from this side. So if do I have reporting jobs? Is there anything in here yet? No schedule jobs available, schedule report. The schedule reports. And then over here, let me see if we could do our accrual balances, select. All right, so what you do is you go into that first icon, get to schedule report, and then let me see what our options are here. We get to give it a name, the time period, hyperfine, output formats. And you can do report recipients down here, it looks like. So in this case, not sure if that'll, you can choose the employee names from the drop-down list about who should get that. So you might have to kind of do them one at a time, depending on who should be the recipient of the actual report. It's going to be located in the first panel there, in that third panel down, third form down. So we don't go over that too much in this class, but it looks like this is it here. So what that was, again, if I come back here for a moment, when we have the completed, in progress, and upcoming, where you run a report, we choose reporting jobs instead, the very first item right there. That is what talks about scheduling. So it's called a reporting job in this system. Comes up here, it'll show you any report jobs you have in place already that have been predefined, but you can also schedule report yourself. So that opens up the panel on the right to put in the settings you want. Choose the report you want, select that, and then fill all this in with what your time frame is. Usually you want some kind of a symbolic time period versus a range of dates, so it makes sense every time it's going to be run the next time. So I might say something like previous pay period. Could be all home or something else. I could choose different formats if I want still. We could say one-time schedule, or we could say recurring, in which case you tell it how often to process, what the recurrence is right here. But that's going to be maybe by the month or possibly by the day or the week. You can change those out. I could say maybe just to run this every Monday. Tell it when to start. What time it should run as well. Sometimes the time definitely matters for scheduling. If you need that for a meeting, or if you know it's a labor-intensive report, you want to run it in the middle of the night. That's one reason why the start would matter so much there. Start time, I should say. And then end date is an option. A lot of times people leave it on forever. They don't bother putting a stopping point on it. So it looks like it's all kind of in here. If I apply that, settings, and then the people down here start to type their name in, and they should pop up in the list. And you'd schedule it. And it should show up in the scheduled report job and process when you tell it to. So Chiosi, does that answer that question for you? We don't really go over it in this class. I think it's more in some of the pre-learning content where they talk a little bit about that. Sure. Rosalina, that's what I was looking for. I was looking for this here to see if that was even an option. I didn't see it the way I would expect, because if I do Adams there, let me see if I do John there, does it, lets me put another person in, but it doesn't really show me anything here that is allowing it to be emailed. That might be a limitation that we have right now. Let me, if I cancel out here for a second, when you're back in this prior form, some of the upcoming reports are the ones that'll show down here when they're scheduled, that type of thing. They'll be there if they've been run for you already. That type of, they'll be in this area. So they'll be kind of completed as they are scheduled, essentially, and accessible to open up without having to run them. But I don't think we're allowing them to be emailed yet. I'll check that and see what our team says about that. I'm trying to remember. I think someone had asked that before. Can we email scheduled? Okay, I'll try to look into that for you, see what we find out. Any other questions right now? Good questions. You guys are thinking big thoughts here. All right. So what I want to have you do, you probably have an idea now. We come back here. What you're doing is you're starting at the top of your page 10. You want to publish that report that you just created, right? Make sure it's available in the system through these 8 steps right there. Add it to the report data access profile, to the manager profile, so that Michael can log in and get to the report himself. And then you log in as Michael Martin. He's going to use the same password as Sean. Get into his report library, find the report, run it as a PDF. I'd say just the PDF is a minimum. And then if you have some time, try to run it as also Excel and the interactive mode. Or just pick one of those. Pick one that you want, your favorite, and go for that. You don't have to do all 3 necessarily. These are pages 10 and 11. That's our plan, pages 10 and 11. Come back to my screen here. Put that up on the lobby page. Cleared that buttons. There we go. All right, there you are. So for that running the report, you can pick just one of those if you'd like to. That's fine. But try to make sure it does run in the system for Michael. All right, thank you. All right, great. Looks like most of you got there. Good job. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So hopefully you're seeing the end result of the report that you got working in the system, which is great. Now let's say that Michael is reviewing it himself and he might come up with a few suggestions for Sean to change the report. So that's what I want to see next. So I come back here to my screen. So here is the report. This is just my PDF version. So he likes it for the most part. He says, okay, see the names there, the IDs, accrual code's good, balance of hours is good, but I don't have anything for these two columns. I have no information for the days or the money. So I'd really rather that not be there. Can't you take those two columns off? Yeah, sure, we could do that. That's all right. That won't take us too much effort in the report. And he has two other requests as well. He says there's an accrual code that I'm worried that might show up here that I do not want to have included on the report. So what I want you to do is make sure it never shows up in the report somehow. Omit the accrual, essentially, that accrual record from the report. And then what he's talking about is something called leave FMLA. Now, I don't see any of those right here for what I look at, but just want to ensure that even if it's not showing right now, that it never does anytime he runs this report. So we're going to apply a filter somehow to eliminate one record regarding, I shouldn't say one record, but any records that have a certain accrual code. And one more thing, although not listed, oops, let me come back over, where am I? Sorry, where'd my thing go? Ah, this one, there we go. We did that, we did that. We only have two listed up top here. We have the available balance days. We don't really mention the filter up top here in the bulleted list. I'm sorry, but it is down here, adding the filter. And one more thing we do mention as well, there's my leave FMLA, is a third option, adding the manager name. So this is another column that Michael wants to have physically displayed on the reports, but he did not tell us about this one in the very beginning. So that means something. That means we're going to have to somehow get that available on the report. What do you think our first step is going to be to get the manager name to show up in the report? Anyone know? Where do we have to go first to make that available? A column we do not have addressed already. Remember what we did in the very beginning? First step we had to take before we even started developing the report itself was that report data object. There we go. I think people are typing it. Yeah. We can often abbreviate that as RDO, report data object. Yeah, we have to go back there and explain to the system, hey, you need to add another column in. So a little bit more tough to get to this because you have to kind of break out of the report structure. Say, okay, wait for that. I have to go back and fix it over here first. This is when it's inconvenient for the report data object to be separated from the report design. But like we said other times, it is beneficial. Now I will tell you that although we say manager name right here, that's what we used to call it when we first put out the documentation. In the last few weeks, they changed the name of the column in our database. It is no longer referred to as manager name. It is referred to as reports to. So I got to jot this down. Instead of manager name, use reports to. So in other words, who the person reports to, as in a supervisor or manager. So that's the label. It's called reports to versus manager name. So I have that up on the whiteboard for you as well. And what this refers to is when you get to the point of modifying the report data object, what this looks like. But I want to show you just really quickly what this all looks like. It's not hard to do, especially these first two are pretty straightforward. That third one is a little bit tricky. But if I come back in to my system, and then here's Michael right now, so I want to sign off and come back in as Sean because Michael doesn't have the rights to come in here and fix the report the way he wants it. He needs Sean to help him out. I'll log back in as Sean. You can just watch my screen for a moment. This won't take too long. So Sean comes back in here. So first of all, I'm trying to get back into the reports. We talked about starting a report as unpublished, but then you publish it. It never goes backwards. It never goes from published back to unpublished. Well, luckily, we can revise reports in either category. So I'm going to come back to Common Setup, and knowing that I have published this already, I'm going to go to Published Reports. It's in there, and I have to find it. This is a list of all the published reports, not just the custom ones, so all the ones that exist in our system overall. This one isn't too tough. It's kind of right up here towards the top. Accrual balances, but if you had to, you could filter. And sometimes the best thing to do for filtering here is to do a filter on type way over on the right-hand side and just type in custom. Then you'll just get the custom reports that you have created and registered in the system. So there we go. So I see the other one that you're going to create afterwards, but here's the first one, accrual balances. Now, if I want to modify that report, I want to choose Edit Design right here in the upper left-hand side. What I don't want to do is go all the way to the right and choose Edit over here. That would create, let me change the publication, let's say, like change what category it shows up in, that type of thing. I'm not trying to modify that. Try to modify the actual design of the report. So Edit Design up here, having the right report selected. And the first thing that Michael was talking about were the columns he does not want to include. Now notice how I got this. Sample data is empty. This is when I say the system tends to be a bit inconsistent. So I had data there before. Now I don't see any data, and it gives me this. Data is empty. That's okay. That's all right if it does that. It's not a problem. As long as I see my column headers, I can still do anything I need to in terms of modifying the data. Here's the columns. There's one. There's the other one. So first of all, I have to choose the column, like I might choose available balance days, even if I don't see data. That's all right. See that little trash can right above there? That's delete. So if I click on delete right there with just that column chosen, give that a few seconds. Oop, that's a little nerve-wracking that it disappeared like that. It doesn't usually completely disappear. Wow, come on. What just happened? Ah, my menu bar is gone. All right, I'm going to kill Analytics Studio. Cooperate with me, please. Still not coming up. Okay, there we go. So see how it did a little bit better that time? Now I have data. So it's just a little bit of a hiccup there what it does. I'm going to try this again. Available balance days, trash can. What I want is a little circle and everything stays where it is. Circle, circle, circle. There we go. Everything stayed. It's trying to remove that column, the one that says days. And it's gone. Now that could be a little nerve-wracking. You can see how there's a trash can right there now, but there's only 4 icons. If I choose that trash can now, the entire table disappears. Everything's gone. I don't want that. So if people get a little nervous with this, there is another option you have. I could click on the column header to select the column and avoid the trash can altogether by doing a right click. Some people prefer to come down here, right click and choose column, in which case you could either delete the column right there, or even better yet, sometimes hide it. Because who knows, Michael might change his mind later and say, oh, now I have data there, I want to see it. So if you just hide the column, it's still ready to go, you can just bring it back up. So I kind of like to hide things sometimes, but still have them available. I'm going to hide column. It will drop out. No one will see it, but it's still kind of there if I need it. There we go. So easy to get rid of the 2 columns. And if you're wondering how to get that back in, if I were to click on any column, then right-click column here, we'd have a show columns. So show columns, if you have hidden something, will open up any that you have hidden at that point. But I don't want to do that right now. I just want those 5 columns so far. One of the next things he wanted us to do was eliminate one of the accrual codes. So I don't even see the accrual codes right there, but it doesn't mean I can't get into the menu for it. I click on that accrual code column, so it highlights, get my icons, right click, and there's a filter down here. You might also see the icon up top. It's right there, the second filter right there, that's filter as well. So whichever one you prefer. Choose it down here. And we have a filter. It's basing this on whatever column I was on. I was on accrual code, so it knows that. I don't want equal to. That would include records with this specific accrual code. We're trying to do the opposite. I want to say from the drop-down, we have all this to choose from. I want to say not equal to. Not equal to. We do have to specify literal value. We do have to do this right here. We cannot get a list of values to pop up here. We can't query back to the system somehow. We do have to physically type it in, and it is a case-sensitive reference. So the way they have it spelled in the system, leave in capitals FMLA. So I'm typing in the entry. So you want to know what the value is you're looking for. So accrual code not equal to leave FMLA should omit or exclude any rows or records that have that particular accrual code. And I okay that. Now when you okay this filter, you don't get a circle. It is still processing, so don't think it's not doing anything. It just simply doesn't show you the circle. It just takes a couple more seconds, then it drops out. There we go. Now notice all of a sudden I get even more data. So it's hard to know what the system is thinking sometimes. So accrual code, I see all these other ones that are here, which are great. Lost vacation, personal leave, sick hours, those are fine. So those are the first two changes. Get rid of the two columns you don't want. Remove a possible accrual code. I could save all that. But now the third change was to add in a column we do not yet have available, which means you really have to close down the report. I can't get to the data from here to actually revise the data. For that, I have to go back to the report data object. Now, luckily right here back in the published report listing, when you're looking at the reports, way over here on the right, there's the name of it, accrual underscore balances underscore EE. So I can just know from right there what it is. I don't have to even go into the report sometimes. I come back, trying to get to that report data object. Still under common setup, report data object management. And it's right there. I'm going to choose it, and over here on the right-hand side, I'm going to choose to edit that. And the system comes up with a warning because it recognizes we are using this now, that a report is referencing this report data object. So it says, you sure? Yes, I'm trying to fix it. So I say yes there. And if I do my add down below, now if you try to go with our instructions and you try to type in manager name, you're not going to find it. See, there's nothing there. It's not called manager name anymore. It used to be, but they modified that. So honestly, I had to just figure this out. I know sometimes we used to call this reports to in some other programs, so I tried that and then it was in there. So instead of manager name, I'm going to have you do this guy, reports to. So that is just the renaming of the column in our database. They kind of set it up a bit differently now, but our instructions are not quite up to speed yet. I apologize for that. So I choose this. Remember, when you select the column, you can still change this. So if Michael keeps referring to this as manager name, you could still change that to say manager name. That's okay. Just be aware that when you look for it in the data dictionary, it's referred to currently as reports to. Now, I already have mine in there, so I'm not going to bother adding that in. I already did it down below here. So my reports to is already there with the original name. I didn't change it. But you would have to come all the way back here to do this first and save your changes. And then you'd have to make your way back. I come back in here to get back into the report again, which again is published. So I'd come back down to published reports yet again, where I was just a couple minutes ago. The trick is having to add the column in. How do you get a new column into that report? Here's accrual balances again, edit. Now for one, when you come right back into the application here, back into Report Studio, initially what's going to happen is the table will be fully highlighted. See, before I click on anything, I have the blue line all the way around the whole table, and I have the 4 icons here, trash can, grid, pencil, and that little gear for properties. That's ideal, honestly, because what you're trying to do is get into edit data. Now I know in the instructions they word this a little bit differently. They tell you here how to update the published reports is to click on the visualization tab, then right-click on the table headers and choose edit data. Kind of works, but not exactly. Let me demo this a couple different times to show you different ways this works. It's all about just realizing, am I looking at the table or am I looking at a column? As long as you can tell the difference between those two, you're good. So this is what the deal is. Right now it's a table, which means I can use that little pencil if I want to for edit, or I could right-click on any column header and I get this smaller menu, which includes edit data, which means the entire table. That'll bring up table builder, what we saw in the very beginning. But if I had selected on a column like this, my icons change. I don't have a pencil icon. A lot of people say, well, what happens if I get to that point? How do I get back? Do I have to close the program again? No. All you have to do is come up above the headers. See where you have the trash can and all these icons, where there's a little gray bar above that. There's kind of this panel above the headers. And you only have icons on the right, but if I click maybe to the left of that trash can, still in that same area, kind of right above accrual code, see how it highlights the table? So no matter what you're doing here, you can very easily redirect the system to look back at the entire data structure, the entire table visualization. You don't have to worry about exiting the program, coming back in, choosing visualization necessarily. Just have to know which way to get to it. Just have to get back to the 4 icons. And if I click in here, too many icons, I come up here, blank area above the blue headers, click, 4 icons. I could then right-click and choose Edit Data, or I could just use the pencil. Brings me to Table Builder, where you'll have reports to, which you could move over and put wherever they tell you to. I think you put it up here, and we okay that. And then it's going to add that additional column into your report. But you have to have the table highlighted so you can get to Edit Data to get Table Builder to pop up to show you the extra columns. That's the trick. And notice I don't see anything for reports to. That's okay. Sean isn't allowed to see that data. And I'll know that because when I click here for a second, I kind of get an error message up top. Failed to retrieve some data from the provider reports to. That's not a bad error. That's okay. That's based upon permissions and security and rights within the system. Sean is not allowed to see who people report to. So even though he's allowed to develop a report, certain information will still be omitted for him when he's looking at the report design because he's not allowed to see it. He can't see this. He can't see wages in our system. He's just not allowed to. So although it says error, it should probably be more of a message, let's say. I could still save and view. Pops up with my dates. I could either leave today's date. That's okay. I okay that. And it's going to try to show me my data. And even here on this side, the error message will be even more evident. In pink up there. Can't see that. That's okay. I don't have the extra columns. I have a column for reports too. And ideally, I don't see that extra accrual code. So I made the change to the report, right? If I close this down, I don't have to save again because Save and View took care of it. But if you haven't saved, you want to save here or do File Save before you close. If you try to close, you haven't saved it, it will prompt you. Do you think I can just tell Michael to go run it now? Considering where we were when we kind of had to go back and make this change, can I just go tell Michael to run this now? What do you think? Maybe you think we have to publish? Yeah, it's debatable here a little bit. Do we have to do something different with it? You want to consider that what I was in here right now, I'm in Publish Reports already because we did publish this before. So once you go through that initial process, you built your report data object, you started as unpublished, but you published it and made it available to the end user through the profile settings. A lot of that you don't have to do again. I don't necessarily have to publish it again or add to the report data access profile. The only time I would have to do that would be if I change the name of the report. If it's an entirely different name of the report, I'm changing all the settings here somehow, it's going to be a new name that I add to the profile list, that would be different. But if I haven't changed any of that, I can still go back and change the report itself, fix the report differently as many different times as I need, and yeah, just go run it. Yeah, so we don't have to go back and go through that process again. Once you did that, you're done with those parts. So then Michael can go check it out and see if it's okay. So that's our plan. So let me come back here. Point to the right page. All right, so these are page 12 and 13. So you're going to remove a column, move 2 columns actually. You can delete or hide them, whatever you want to do. Add a filter to limit one of those accrual codes from displaying. And we say add a column to the basic employee report. We say edit the report data object. And when I mention here in purple, look for reports to, please. I apologize that your book is a little bit off. It says manager name. Instead, please use reports to. And then go take a look at it and see how it is. If you have any trouble with it, please let me know. Green thumbs up when you're all set. Might be a question coming through there. That's fine. Oh, Sharon, am I on the wrong pages? Let's see. 12 or 15? Let me see. Well, the page number's right here. It would be page 12 for the hard copy page number in the lower right corner if you're looking at the actual page numbers. If you're looking at the PDF version, the digital copy, it might be page 15 where it starts. So that might be including the title page and the table of contents there. Just make sure it starts with something that says updating basic employer reports. That should be the top of the page. Okay, sure, no problem. All right, looks like people are getting through that. Good job. So there you go. There's your first report. You have built the report and you have made some modifications to it. Sure. Listen, you have a doubt? You having trouble with something? Page 13. Let me see. Okay. So page 13 is talking about adding that column, right? Yeah, that process right there, that's what I was kind of mentioning, that although we mentioned using visualization, trying to click on that, that's what I was trying to demo. If you just click right above the column headers, you will be looking at the full table, and you can use that pencil to the right, or then you can right-click on a column header. What I've found is going to the visualization tab, that only works if you have done a couple other steps before that that makes sense for it. That's why I kind of do it a little differently. Yeah, I would probably make a note to yourself if you want to right there. It's just a matter of clicking above the table, like right above the column headers, but not choosing an icon. That'll redirect you to the table structure. Your icons will change to be those 4 icons, and then your edit menus and the pencil will work for you properly. Yeah, I'm going to have to rewrite that, I think. We're going to want to change that because I do think that confuses people in our instructions. Apologize for that. All right, for the most part, people are getting there. Good. We have one more exercise here. Might seem crazy looking at the time, but this will go a lot faster. We had to step through all that. It was your first time seeing all that information, right? So it's not going to be nearly as time consuming. But what I want to have us first do, because we're at the point now where I don't have much more that I can show you in terms of presentation. You've seen most of it already. There's one little thing I'm going to show you. Before we get there, though, I want to redirect everybody to fill out the course eval. I know it's a little bit early, but the reason we do this is because we're coming up to that point. People, when they get out of class, they just want to leave, and I totally understand that, but then we don't get all the evals. So let me show you where that is, how to access it. It's a little different now. It's just in the same place where you access the class environment today. So let me just demonstrate that here on my side. If you don't mind, we'll have you take care of that first before I introduce the next topic, and then you can spend as much time on that exercise as you need, because you all work at different speeds as well, so that's why I kind of like to do it this way. So let's, instead of having everyone wait around for the whole group to finish, let me show you on this side here. What am I looking for? I'm looking for, we're talking about accessing the class here. This is this new handout we have for you about Knowledge Map Live. But then down here it talks about how to get to it. You've already gotten into the class earlier today, and that's where you kind of got into Enter Classroom right here. Also launching tenants, and here to the right side is Enter Survey. So that doesn't show up in the very beginning. You might have to refresh your screen if you're still logged in there from the first part of class. Usually it's 30 minutes before class, and it may not even be there just yet. Now looking at the time, I realize it may not be there yet. If it's not there just yet, that's okay. You can try to take a look, see if it's there, but in another 10 minutes or so it should pop up. And if you don't mind getting that finished off before you leave today, I would greatly appreciate it, because that's our only feedback we have regarding the classes and how well we are doing or not doing to know how to make improvements. So that's a survey right there, available from the My Class pop-up, essentially. So it may take a bit for that to show, because at least I heard lately it takes 30 minutes for that to refresh till it shows 30 minutes to the end of class. Not sure if that's right or not. You know what? I'm sorry. I'm confusing it with this. Surveys available for 30 days after the class, not 30 minutes. It should be there. I'm sorry. I just got this document earlier today, so I'm trying to remember. 30 minutes prior to the start of class. Yeah, so we have 30 here. We have 30 day. Not related to this. The survey should be there for you. So do me a favor. Try to get into that. Go back into Knowledge Map Live, back into where you entered class. Refresh if you need to, but I don't think you have to. In the pop-up, there should be an Enter Survey button. Click on that. You might have to provide some information about what class you are in, but it should know it as well. But in case it asks you, it'll be under my name and today's date sometimes. So that's going to be my name, Elizabeth, and today's date, 5/22/2019. So if you don't mind taking care of that, and just give me a thumbs up when you're done with the eval, if you don't mind, the survey, and then I'll just show you one more little thing. A little slight difference about the report date object for the next example. Other than that, it's the exact same type of process you've gone through already. Okay, hopefully people are finishing up with that. I appreciate it. Let me just show you one quick difference here about the next set of exercises. It's how you create the report date object. So I come back into this for a moment. Clear that for you. Okay, did all that. Talking about creating and editing a basic organization report. So talking about the business structure this time, not specifically employee data. So it's Michael. He's back. He's interested in looking at overtime by location. So he oversees a few different areas in the company. He wants to see it from that higher perspective, not all the way down to the employee level. So he talks to Sean. They decide exactly what type of data Michael wants on the report, and they decide it's these columns of information. The location name, then the actual hours, overtime hours, some percentages here as well, and productive hours. So what Sean has to do is log into the system, get into where you can create the report data object, and it's going to do something a little different here, add in a business structure view versus an employee view. And you'll see there's a separate setting in there we don't normally see. So I come back in my system, back into the report data objects, give you an idea how this works here. When you create a new report data object that references the business structure, so I do add business structure view. These are the ones that say organization down below. I still give it a name. I'm just going to give it a generic name test here because I built mine already. And a description. That's no different. But then you see this location type. We don't see that with an employee view. We only get this with business structure views. This allows you to kind of drill down into a certain level in your business structure and auto-populate all the data above that. So for example, if I'm interested in going all the way down to department, hit this drop down, this is the root essentially of ours. We see company, country, business, field, facility. I want to go all the way down to department here. If I choose department, it's going to populate down below in my column listing, department and everything above that. So I get all of those columns of information immediately available. So choose department, give it a couple seconds, maybe not immediately. It takes a couple seconds. There they are. Down on the bottom here, I see the slash there for the root, the company, the country, business, facility, practice, region, all the way down to department. I don't have to use all of these, but they're all available to me. And beyond that, then you come over here, you add in the rest of the columns you want. So they start telling you we want to bring in, back here on the next page, you want actual hours. Don't forget about that guy up top in section 9A, right? Actual hours is one of them. Then overtime hours and productive hours and some of these percentages and location name path. So you're going to still bring in all those, but you'll still have everything else from that business structure. And then you start to build off the unpublished report. Same way we did. Data, manage data, identify that report data object. Data parameters, they're going to have you go back about 30 days to get a usable record set. So go back to, April 22nd or so. So remember to click in the body of the report panel to get that content to display on the left side so that you can go to visualization then to find a table and drag it over. If it doesn't work the first time, try it again. They tell you to bring in just these columns. I'm going to have you probably add one more. Department. We kind of went all the way down to department. Department makes a lot more sense in this report than location name path. You can still put location name path in there, but also bring in department. You don't have to change the report data object. That's one of those many extra columns the system already built in for us. It'll be there. So there'll be add department in here when you display these in the right order. It'll make a lot more sense to have that in. So I'll put that up on the whiteboard with my content. You put in a title, nothing fancy, not going to worry about formatting for this one. You're just going to build it. You're going to publish it then. Make it available in the system through the report data access profile, review its content as Michael, and see how it is. So that's our primary series of steps we're interested in. I will say that beyond this, there is another one here about updating, adding a column. I'm going to leave that as optional. That's the last couple pages here. If you get done quickly with the exercise, you want that additional practice of updating the report data object and coming back and adding it to the report, you can do that, but I won't require it. That's on page 19 and 20. So if I come back here, get my mouse to move, that'd be super. Back to the lobby content. These pages right here. Starts on page 15, that's the hard copy page number in the lower right-hand corner. Design the new report data object. We say create the report. I say add department. So drop that in. It's going to just look better if you bring that in. And you might get that sample data as empty message. That's okay. As long as you get your blue column headers, you're good. You're good to go. Publish the reports. Add it to the profile. That's DAP, Data Access Profile. Review the content. I know they tell you to run this for the previous pay period for only certain locations. Although you can do that, you're not going to get a lot of data. I try to make this bigger. I run it for all locations for the past 90 days. Then you get some better data there to look at. So that's our primary concern. Logging in as Sean Ivan or Michael Martin, depending upon what we're trying to do. Same password we used before. Try to get through that. That's our last bit of content right here. Whenever you get through with this, if you don't have any questions for me, you're welcome to exit out of the class. That's fine. I'll thank you right now for attending. People do take a different amount of time to finish this exercise right here, so I'll do that now versus waiting to the very end and making you wait on me. And I think some of you I will see tomorrow as well. Who's taking tomorrow's class? Anybody? The advanced reporting? Some of you might be waiting on that till later on, which is fine. Jen, you are okay? Yeah, I think a few people look like they were on the list. So we'll probably reconvene at that point and show you some additional features you can use. So I'll be quiet now, let you work. But if you have any questions for me as you're working on this, please let me know. Karen taking it tomorrow? Good. There we go. So we'll see you in that class as well. All right. Have fun with this. I will be here as long as you need me till 5. If you get all the way done with it, though, and you're happy and you don't have any questions, you're welcome to exit out and have a good evening. But do let me know if you're having trouble. All right. Thank you. I'm going to bring out my end result in a minute as well, so you can see that. In fact, I'll type some of this down here. Just making a note there in the chat pod of the 3 things that are a little different from what the exercise says. Ages 15 to 18, add the department, run it for all locations 90 days. And I'll show you my end results. Lisa, let's see. I would recommend bringing that in. You can probably see it on my screen right now if you're looking back at Adobe. They have you bring in location name path. So that's the column they have you display, but it says the same thing every single time. So I like to bring in departments so you have something that differentiates between the records there. So it is part of your records because you chose all the way down to department when you identify the report date object. So it should be in there automatically based upon what you chose for the location type in the RDO. So you might have to look up and down through the list when you're in the report design. But yeah, I would probably add that in. Yep, just so you have it. It'll make more sense. You see then it's assembly versus receiving and shipping and so on. And what I have on the screen, I ran this as PDF. I know that they say to run it as interactive. It's so small I can't see it. So I just ran it as PDF to display it here. I also have that final column on the right side, which was the optional exercise, adding data up to date. You can do that if you want to, but it's not really required. We did that before with the other one. This gives us an idea of what else we can display, essentially. That kind of data right there. All right. I'll leave it on the screen. Sure, let's see. Unable to see any data in Table Builder. So when you open it, you were able to drag it over and the form opens up and nothing displays on the left-hand side? Yeah, I had that happen earlier to me during testing before the class. I would exit out of it, start it again. Don't even bother saving the report. Somehow it's getting hung up where it's not really recognizing the report data object. just try to start again. I hate to tell you to do that, but the report data object is in place already. Just start the design of the report again and see if that'll do better. It worked better for me the second time I tried it. Julie, you're all set there? Okay. Thank you very much, you too. Take care. Thanks for attending. Manisha, all set? All right, thank you very much for attending. Have a good night or evening. Depends upon where you are and what time it is. It's almost 5 here. I'm thinking it's nighttime. Now keep in mind if anyone has any questions as you're going through this, you're not sure about the exercise, let me know. It's only your second report you're working on, so it's not expected you're just going to breeze right through this necessarily. But if you do, even better. That's right, you can't get it to actually work properly. Did you try logging off and coming back in? I wonder if it's getting hung up. I was having the same type of problem earlier, but eventually it did work for me. But I do understand as well if you are, yeah, and you know what? I know we're getting later in the day here. If you're thinking I just would rather not do it, I totally get that as well. I don't want you struggling with it and having that be your last impression of the reporting necessarily. It's mostly because of our environment, how many resources and memory we have available here for the system. Rosalinda, you're all set? All right, thank you very much. Have a great day. And Sharad, I'll say if the table builder will work for you, it's pretty quick to get the rest of the report together, but I understand if it's just becoming too much of an issue. Oh, Sharad, I apologize. You haven't understood? Okay, so hopefully the first one made some sense to you. It really was just repetition. That's all it is repetition right now. I will tell you that the tenant is available till about 9 p.m. East Coast time tonight. So if you wanted to try it later, you could. But I understand if you got through the first one and you feel comfortable with it, that's probably fine. Yeah, you're going to be in tomorrow's session? There you go. Yeah, that'll be fine. And we have repetition there as well. We don't have reports pre-built, so you still go through the process again for 2 reports in that class. So you'll still get that.